Welcome everyone to Rejuvenate, Listen, Supervisor and Admin Functionality in 2022. Happy New Year. We are glad that you're with us to learn or just to learn for the first time or relearn some supervisor and admin tips, tools, tricks of the trade. And today we have our technical implementation manager, Angela Klipsch, who will demonstrate and give us a view of the insides of Lyssn.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, well, welcome. Here we are, 2022, and we are pushing forward with a little bit of a supervisor and administrator refresher, and essentially full-on training. If you have not interacted with Lyssn as a supervisor, as Lisa mentioned, this will give you hopefully everything you need to know to get going in your Lyssn program. So let's just, well, I guess a little bit about myself. I'm here with Lyssn. I've been with the company since the beginning of 2018, and working on just getting the good word out about Lyssn and training folks on how to use Lyssn. We think it's a pretty intuitive program, but there are some tips and tricks that we will be showing you today that hopefully will make your life a little bit easier. For those of you who don't know, Lyssn is a HIPAA compliant recording and reviewing platform. It's web-based. You can upload, you can record sessions within the platform. You can initiate telehealth directly within Lyssn, and those are for all of this is for one-on-one therapy. That is how Lyssn was designed. This was based in university research and spun out into this current version that you're seeing now. So the utility of this will be essentially looking at a couple of evidence-based practices related to therapy, and those are motivational interviewing and cognitive behavioral therapy. So both of those tools, we will be looking at some quality tools that you can use to work with your supervisees and help them have a better therapeutic interaction with their clients. So to give a little bit of a agenda to a little bit of structure to this, and for those of you that may be reviewing this later on, this is a nice place to look at and see if you need to fast forward to a particular chunk of the webinar so that you can get straight to the point that you're looking for. And we are recording this, and we will have it available to anyone who would like to request it. So just to quickly review from an administrator perspective, we'll talk about the different user profiles and their relationships within the platform. As an administrator to your Lyssn account, we'll talk about how you can assist your colleagues from time to time. And for supervisors and administrators, we're going to look a little bit about at which part of the sessions that you can see, both as a supervisor and as an administrator. I will give a little overview on how to comment on sessions and how you can have a little bit of a discussion internally within the platform. You can post comments attached to time points within the session, and you can respond to questions or comments that your supervisees have made within their own sessions. So it's a nice little feature that helps structure your one-on-one communications. And then we'll talk about the new Lyssn features, which you will see as I go through. I will comment on those. For those who are using this as a refresher, you will see the new functionality, and we'll talk about those as we go through the system. And at the end, a little bit of where you can go for help, and of course those questions, if there are any in the chat that come up, then we'll address those at the end. So here we go, and I'll get into my screen, and we will back out just a little bit. Here we go. I was a little ahead of the game there. So let's look at the sort of landing page after you've logged in, and you as a user, this particular user has two functions, both as a program administrator within the Lyssn account, within this particular Lyssn account, and as a user. Now, a little bit of a definition here. Program administrator is the individual who assigns relationships between supervisors and supervisees. They can, access the billing information, download some overall metrics for all of the users within the account. They cannot record sessions and they cannot view sessions. So if your Lyssn account only includes program administrator capability, you're not going to be able to see the actual recorded sessions. This particular functionality could be good for somebody who is maybe a research assistant or an administrative assistant or graduate assistant within your university training clinic. They aren't an actual therapist, but they're providing that support within your clinic, and they will not be able to see those recorded sessions, which is, I think, super important to the structure of the platform. The user, which is this second sort of what we call profile, this user profile is, as a user, you will be recording sessions. You will be, you can upload and record sessions. You can review your supervisee sessions. You can look at some overall metrics for your specific supervisees. However, you cannot download those clinic-wide metrics that I'll be showing you. So let's dive in as an administrator, and that's that first profile that I was referencing. And while it looks like you have a whole list here, you're going to default to the client list. You have a whole list here of clients. If you see when I click on the client, this particular client will have, I'm just moving my windows around here so I can navigate. We'll have basically a designation. This person is a therapist. This person has two therapists, this particular client. And if I click the down arrow, you can see which therapist this person is assigned to. Now, sometimes it might be a little unusual to have two therapists per client. Some clinics, depending on the clinic, it can vary. So in this particular situation, you have that two therapists per client. But let me go ahead and click on the therapist tab up here in the upper left. And as an administrator, often what needs to be done is you've added all of your therapists in your clinic, and now you just need to create those supervisor relationships. So I'm going to go ahead down here at the bottom and click on Drew and see that Drew has one client and one supervisor. And if I click the down arrow, I can see that I am Drew's supervisor, but the reality is that Drew should probably have a couple of other supervisors just to make sure that they get the well-rounded supervision that they need. So I'm going to go ahead and add Lisa to that particular supervisee. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And while this is an option and always has been an option for administrators to add clients or assign supervisors to clients, that's not, this is a feature we'll discuss in a little bit, is the ability for therapists to edit their own client list. And as a supervisor, you can also be a therapist, and those those two user profiles, therapist and supervisor, are within the user tab. So if I expand here, you can scroll down a little bit more and you can see this one client assigned to Drew. And if I want to add more clients, I just click the add button and we can see our entire list of clients here. And we'll just go ahead and add another one and then scroll. You can see how to remove that client. You can unassign the client, but also the therapist can remove clients from their caseload as well. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Now let's click on supervisors, and it is sort of similar functionality. Just as you can add a supervisor to a therapist, you can go into the therapist list, or the supervisor list, and add therapist to the supervisor. So we have a supervisor here, Gail, who has no supervisees, and that's we don't want that. So let's go ahead and add a couple of supervisees. That Drew needs another supervisor. And then if I click the down arrow, you can see that Gail now has a couple of supervisees. Something else within as an administrator that you can do, not related to those relationships of supervisor and supervisee or client, you can edit the the therapist and supervisor accounts. As you can see, we have Gail. Underneath her name is her username. And generally for new accounts, the username is their email address. But for those folks here getting a little bit of a refresher, previous to, I don't know, about 6 months ago, usernames were created. So you could do a first initial last name, as Gail has here, and that is always noted in the administrator platform underneath their full name. Now to edit this user, I just go over here to the right side and click on the edit button. And this is where you can change the functionality of this user. Right now, Gail is just a supervisor. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that she's also listed as a therapist, which means that you can assign her to a supervisor, but also she'll be able to add clients to her list as well. You can edit Gail's name and her email address, and you can change her password, which is at this point something that administrators within a Lyssn account, this is a function that we will be sort of asking the administrators of accounts to take over at this point, changing passwords if the user is unable to reset their password using the link that is auto-populated, then they would need to go to their administrator. So as an administrator, I can go ahead and change Gail's password, just clicking on that, and then I would change it and communicate that to her personally. So let's see, there we go. And you have to click the update button there at the bottom and then done. And then that will effectively change Gail's passwords. So again, this is a very administrative functions, not seeing any recordings here, not being able to record. The other thing that administrators can do that no other user functionality can do is create peer groups. And peer groups are basically a way to allow therapists to share individual sessions of their own desire. They recorded a particular session that they wanted to share with a colleague who isn't a supervisor. They can ask the administrator to create a peer group and then share those individual sessions. So I can say, here, I'll just create, it's a simple process. In this functionality as the administrator, that's really all you do unless, well, actually it's not all you do. Let's go in here and then we need to add our therapist. We're gonna add Brian, and we're gonna add, let's see, Drew's very busy. You can add supervisors to the peer groups if the everybody agrees to that, that's fine. Generally speaking, the peer groups functionality within university training clinics is used a lot in class or seminar groups, so they can share within their seminar groups or their classes. If they have a project that they need to complete, they can create peer groups and do it that way. This allows, again, individual viewing of sessions. So the therapist of that session is the one who toggles the sharing function on. You can't just see all of each other's sessions, which within the platform, supervisors do have access to all of their supervisees' recorded sessions. So that's something important to note as well. An administrator can add other administrators, which is, I think, something that we encourage, that there isn't just one administrator per account. It's always nice to have somebody else there in case the administrator forgets their password. Working through the menu at the top in the sort of upper middle of the page, we have this analytics button, and as an administrator, I mentioned that you can download information, and this download is a CSV file that will provide all of the metrics for each session for each therapist. So let me go ahead and click on that. And as you can see, you're going to get the name of the therapist here in column E and F, and then the name of the client in column G and H. You're going to have dates and other information, and then you'll get these metrics related to empathy, MI spirit, proficiency, and then as you scroll over, you'll go through the CBT metrics, and then what we have are what we call some brownies, which are, let's see, and well, actually there are topics codes here, and you can see some of those numbers within, those are just counts of mentions. I'll get into that in a minute, but regardless, the administrator can provide this information as general. You could, in general, you could average out these metrics for your entire clinic, so you don't have any identifying information. You could provide potentially like empathy average on the MI and the MISC coding scale, and then you already have those anchors for proficiency that you can reference as well, and I'll talk about those in a minute. They can also view the data visualization, which supervisors, I'm going to show this when I review the supervisor user interaction in just a second. Again, at the menu at the top, I'm going to click on the billing. For this page, you can see basically how many users have used the platform for the month. And right now it looks like the active users, which are the number of users that you have basically active. You can deactivate a user from the administrative level as well. And I'll go back and show you that in just a second. But active users are the users that you have added to your account. And this is really important for those folks who are month-to-month, who are on month-to-month billing. The average users per month is kind of the billing point that we pull from. And so we'll go in and look at this average users and say 7 users per month is what we're billing for, 7.3 users per month is what we're billing for. As a yearly subscription account, you'll see the number of active users, and that's the number of users that you have contracted for. And as this is not a month-to-month account, I don't have the view lower on the page would allow you to enter your credit card information, you can deactivate your entire account and just close down your account from the billing page. So that's another administrator function that you can do. And as I mentioned, as an administrator, you can sort of delete users. I'm going to go over here to therapists again on that main menu at the upper left. And I'm going to find a user, maybe a supervisor potentially here that I want to actually edit. And I go to the edit function. And that's actually not the edit function. I'm refreshing myself now. I'm just going to go ahead and delete Katie from the system. And let's see, remove supervisor, and you say yes. Now, if you wanted to reactivate her, that's something that then becomes a little bit more involved. You can reach out to us at Lyssn, and we can take care of that. Lisa and or myself will be able to take care of that for you. So that is the administrator functionality, and to that end, I'm going to be going back to, let me reference my agenda. Where did I put my agenda? Okay, there we go. So what we're going to get into now are those supervisor functions. And I'm going to go into this user tab right here, the bottom one. And again, if you are an administrator only, once you log in, you're not even going to have an option to go to one panel or the other. If you're a supervisor and or therapist only, you will immediately be taken to your client list. As an administrator, only an administrator function, if that's all you have, you will be taken to that client list, but that client list means a little bit different. As I was showing you, it only allows you to add therapists and edit client lists, so you can't see the actual sessions. So here as a user, I am a therapist and a supervisor, which is very common in the platform, but I'm gonna, as it defaults to my client list, I'm gonna review my supervisor responsibilities here and click on my supervisees up there in the upper left corner. Now, if I had a lot of supervisees, which is also common, I can search, I have a search window, I can search that because eventually you have more than maybe 6 or 7 and you have to scroll, and that's kind of, it can become tedious. So I have 3 right now, supervisees, and my default window is going to be the summary page. And you may recognize this from what I was just showing on the administrator analytics page. When I downloaded that file, we had this sort of interaction that we could do here. And right now the time frame is for the past week, and there aren't any real recordings in there from the past week. So I'm going to click on the time frame to all time. And now you can see we have some little data points here. Our scale across the bottom is related to the scale we use to rate empathy for the MIS coding system. And if I click on, right now the metric, as you can see in the upper right, is empathy. I can change that to potentially something a little bit more general, like % talk time, and not so specific to motivational interviewing. This is a general metric for all sessions. And again, across the x-axis, you'll see it'll anchor to the shortest % talk time over here on the left to the highest % talk time. So if I want to click on a bubble, if I want to look at a bubble and hover over it, the bigger the bubble, the more sessions there are within that bubble. So I can drill down on this particular bubble, and it's going to provide me with a client bubble. And I have 2 sessions. It looks like they both have very close range of scores. We have 53% talk time and 62.6% talk time. And if I go back out, I will go back out, and I can also click on clients over here, but here I'm going to back all the way back out to my supervisees. I can hover over a supervisee here and see how many sessions they have. Right here we have one session at 30.7% talk time. We have a little bit higher over here, 2 sessions with an average 57%. And anyway, let's just scroll down and see some of our other metrics. We have our CBT metrics here, and I'm going to go into competence because I think, let's see, was this one? No, I thought I had one in there that had a CBT session, but based on the competence scores, I don't think that there was. No. Highest here is, oh, there we go, 41. So there is, yes, one session there that does have a CBT. It is a CBT-based session. And the reason I say that is because the scale for CBT competence goes up to 66 as the most proficient. And generally, if it's not a CBT session at all, you'll see these numbers down here in the tens and single digits. But this particular session was a 41. I'm gonna, if I can't drill down any further, then the interaction simply won't do anything. So you'll see the dates of the sessions over here. If these were both CBT sessions, you would say that there was a great amount of improvement from October to January, from a score of 10 here in October to a score of 41 in January. That's something as a supervisor that you could take to your supervisee as a congratulatory measure, perhaps, encouragement for them to continue working on their CBT competence. We can look at agenda setting, and you can see across the bottom axis, we do have the benchmarks for what is satisfactory within agenda setting, and that's at 3.0. And this particular session was a 3.9, so pretty good there. And again, you'll see the range for this particular supervisee. Again, they've done a lot of work between October and January, given the leap in their scores. So that is the data visualization metrics. Really quick and easy way, if I want to back out to all of my supervisees, look at some of the metrics again. You know, percent talk time being one of those general metrics. And if I click down, Drew, again, we have one session here with January 2022. Let's go back to all of Drew's, and then he had another January here in the 60%. So perhaps Drew's talk time is related to the different clients. Maybe practicing silence in some of these clients over here with the 65% talk time, something to encourage with a particular client. Something that a supervisor might want to utilize is looking at that difference in talk time based on the difference in the clients, and just note some of those ways to practice silence in the therapy session. Now, if I click within my supervisees list here on the left side, I'm going to click on Stephanie because it looks like with this purple dot, there are some comments that have been made on Stephanie's session, and it looks like there's a new session. So we have John here, and I'm going to click on the down arrow to access that session. It looks like a 28-minute session. I can see that I could download it if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go to view session, and we have the session with no video, which is an option. You don't have to record video for all of your sessions if you don't want to. But I'm scrolling down, and interestingly enough, I don't see any comments, but let me go ahead and make a few. I'll go ahead and advance the time bar. And as you see, when I advance the time bar over here on the play, next to the play arrow, it advanced the transcript. So let's see, there's a little bit of fear. And then I'm just going to leave a comment for my supervisee. Click Save Note, and you can see here I've made this note, and I can edit or delete it, but within the supervisee's view, they will be able to reply to that. So it becomes like a chat, Google Chat or anything like that that we interact with, a text message and whatnot. Let's continue to review what we have here that could be useful. From the supervisor's perspective is something new that we've just added in December, the topics codes. And these codes are general mentions of different subjects that have been discussed, and there's a number next to each topic. So it looks like work was discussed. It looks like 86 mentions of work during this 28-minute session. So that seems to be a very, very important item, and potentially something that you might want to address with your supervisee. Certainly, if there are more direct issues related to sort of like anxiety, maybe this is a little bit more challenging to deal with from the supervisee's perspective. I'm going to click on the topic, and it's going to highlight within the transcript only those mentions of anxiety. So I don't have to scroll through the entire transcript to see where anxiety was mentioned, which really, I think, reduces the amount of time that you're interacting with these. You don't have to sit down and listen to all 28 minutes of the session. These topics really allow you to drill down into what you might already know is challenging for your supervisee, and then go ahead and click on those things. Now I can click on Show More, and we have several. Now, these topics are noted if they are mentioned a minimum of 3 times in a session. So you're not going to see every topic, but if they've been mentioned throughout the session at least 3 times, you'll see a note of that topic. And this is not an exhaustive list, and this is not a diagnostic list. These are just human coders. Our metrics are trained on human coders going through and teaching our algorithms how to identify these topics. So we've chosen topics specifically related to psychotherapy, and those are the topics that you're going to see at the top of these sessions if they're mentioned at least 3 times. The other thing you can do, now I'm going to unclick the anxiety, because if I don't, it's just going to show me only the chunks of talk turns related to anxiety, and right now I want to see the entire session. And I'm going to bring up the word feeling and search the entire transcript. Perhaps there's something about this particular session that the supervisee has already mentioned to you, maybe in passing. I had this session today and they were talking about their feelings. Not surprising, but it's an easy word that I can search for. So we get a few mentions here, and I'm going to scroll down, and you'll see each time it's highlighted in orange. So you might already know where you want to drill down. You don't need to look at the topics, you just use the search function. And that's something easy. And if I finally find the one talk turn that I think they were referencing, here we go, feeling more pressure. And it automatically takes me to that point within the recording. I can go ahead and play that recording, listen to it from that point on, and reduce the amount of time that I have to take to review the session. The other new item that we have is the transcript download. And if you see next to the word transcript up here, there's an arrow. I'm going to click on that, and over here I have a transcript text file that pops up, and essentially what you're seeing in the transcript panel here, but without those topics codes. So something that we've heard and that we some of our colleagues who are still in the university arena teaching trainees, they like to have the trainees take a transcript and code it themselves from a motivational interviewing perspective or a CBT perspective or whatever. But if you use those, if you ask them to do those MI metrics, I'm going to click on the View Report button over here on the right, and you can have them essentially compare their ratings of their own session, or they could do it to one of their classmates' sessions, perhaps. And this particular session, super high on empathy, a 5 out of 5. So basically have them, without seeing the report, have them code that transcript and then compare their codes to the codes from the report here, which is a nice training exercise. Now, at the top here, you're going to see this purple and gray bar. These are the talk turn codes that you can hover over, and it's going to tell you, for the purple being the therapist, what individual codes for this particular talk turn were coded by our system. And you see an affirm, an open question, complex reflection, facilitate, and closed question. There's a lot going on there, which is always good. You can see if I scroll down, now that's going to be across the entire session. These are codes for every talk turn for MISC. The CBT, this particular bar is only for MI codes, the purple and gray bar. If I click on CBT, you're going to need to see these codes within the report itself. The Lyssn platform was based on MI, and you can see this little new tab here, as we've only in the last year added our CBT algorithms to the system. So our CBT, this particular session, I already looked at in my data visualization. We had 41 for overall competence, which is 41 does meet overall competence, and you have that that reference here for the benchmark. And across the x-axis for common factors, you'll see the benchmarks for those as well. And as you, not terribly surprising, most of these are, all of these here in the common factors are above satisfactory. And, you know, from a supervisor's perspective, I think this is great information to take back to the supervisee, particularly if they have struggled with their CBT sessions in the past. Obviously, within this session, they've really done a good job. Now, I am going to go to a different client, which I know is an MI session. And I've clicked on Brian over here on the left side, and we have a short session here that if I click on View Session, I'm going to see something different at the top of my transcript. And with MI, and with therapy in general, there's a lot of empathy. So you can see underneath the topics, you'll see that you had an empathic moment. Now, I'm going to click Next, and it's going to take me to that empathic moment, which was really early on, I think, or was that early? No, it was further down in the session. So if I click on that, whoops, let me get my scrolling right. If I click on that, it's going to move my play bar to that particular empathic moment I can actually listen to. And certainly something that something that is a nice way to kick off a supervisee one-on-one is to talk about just the accomplishments within their session. It's a nice quick way to do it. You yourself don't need to go through and look and dig for that nice nugget. And again, we have our topics at the top. I'm gonna, since I've already been through these and sort of interacted with those, I'm gonna go over here to view report. And like I said, I know this was an MI session, so I wanna talk a little bit about the MI report. And we have a score at the top called overall MI fidelity, and we've worked with our collaborators and professional MI consultants to create this overall MI fidelity score, and it's a scale of 0 to 12. And it essentially is rolling up all of the globals and all of the behavioral summaries that you see below it into this overall score, much like you have with the CBT competence. The scale is a little different. This one's 0 to 12, CBT, which I think is 0 to 66. So just a little bit smaller scale here, which is fine. Again, we're also factoring in the non-adherent behaviors, which seems to be perhaps one of the reasons that this got a 6 out of 12. There were 7 advises, and that's for MI. Generally, advising is just a bit of a ding. I don't often see that many advises. So from a supervisory perspective, something that this particular therapist might want to work on is, instead of maybe advising or forcing the question with their clients, they might want to do a little bit more active listening and reflecting instead of advising. Now, this one was really high on empathy, and however, didn't quite meet the collaboration basic proficiency. So again, as a supervisor, this is something to me that would say, you know, from a collaboration perspective, that they need to think about ways that they can find a more collaborative conversation with their client. Let's scroll down a little bit more. And again, more reflections, 12% reflections. And this isn't there isn't a sort of metric here as far as like the anchors with the proficiencies in basic and advanced that you see, but this does show you that the percentage is low and the reflection to question ratio is a little bit low here, in that they're only meeting basic proficiency. So for every question, there is a reflection that it usually gives you a little higher score on your question to reflection to question ratio. So always important to add in those reflections, and that's something that you can note. It's a nice, easy overview of the session that you can see. There are some places here, some sort of growth edges, if you will, that you might want to discuss with your supervisee. So that's a nice touch point there. We also have some general metrics, this first tab, which is the main tab you'll land on as a supervisor. The talk time in this particular session was 31% therapist. That's actually not bad. And again, the open to closed questions, 67% open questions, 33% closed. The reflections, the 12% is pretty low there. So that's what's happening. You can get a little bit of a general overview. You can see these maybe for the client in this talk turn bar, where you see all of the individual codes per talk turn, all the individual MI codes per talk turn. You'll see that every therapist talk turn is coded, as I said, but the client talk turns will only be coded, I think, if there's change talk, and I'm not seeing any there, which, you know, not terribly surprising, but again, it's important. Something you might want to mention is how to get your clients to get to that change talk, which is for motivational interviewing, and that behavior change mentality is super important. Let's see, I think, let's view this session really quick. We can see, oh, this is great. 5 empathic moments in this particular session, which is awesome. Related to this session, you'll see alcohol was mentioned 40 times in a 10-minute session. That's an easy item to go to when you're talking with your supervisee. There's obviously a need for some discussion about behavior change related to alcohol, or they're already talking about how their behavior has changed because of their alcohol use. That's already being mentioned. But if I click on alcohol, there's 5 talk turns, and also an empathic moment in there, which you'll see highlighted in purple, which is great. Let's see, keep scrolling through. Oops, the scroll bar is pretty small, so there we go. One of those empathic moments within the alcohol topic, which is great. I'm going to unclick alcohol, and I'm just going to review the empathic moments. Relationship here, relationship conversation, and let's see, self-image, and let's see, scroll down a little bit more, confront, and yeah, it's just a nice little quick review. The last thing is the where to go for help, and the support at lyssn.io is our email address, and whether it's myself, Lisa, or some of our other colleagues and our development team sometimes like to get in there and answer questions that come in. So that is where you would want to email if you have questions related to issues or just questions on how to implement better supervision using these metrics. We have several clinicians on our team, so they would be more than happy to chat about that. The information, if you have an issue like a bug or a hiccup in the platform, things that we would like to have in that communication to support at Lyssn would be the user ID who's having the issue, their username, the session time and date, if you use the Chrome browser, if not, which browser were you using, and was it in-person recording, telehealth recording, or an uploaded recording. The password resets, as I said, can be completed by the account administrator for your particular site. That could be a supervisor as well as an administrator. So those are important things to note. We have a couple of support pages, FAQs, and as we continue to expand our support resources, we will have these videos available.
Thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. I'm just going to close, put that new features and enhancements page back up just as a way to show that we do hear the comments that are coming in. We do hear a lot of the requests that are coming in, and even though we can't always push those things out at in a time that is best suited for you, we are paying attention to the comments, and I think we were able to put out a lot of new features and enhancements that users really wanted and appreciated in 2001. So in 2021,
Yeah.
in 2022, we hope that we can do the same thing, and that will definitely require communication from you. Keep us informed about the things that are working for you. Keep us informed about the things that aren't working for you, and we will try to help you in the best way that we can. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks. Bye-bye.